Hey there, I'm Sandy Reese, Chief Encouragement Officer here at Get Fully Funded, where we help small nonprofits learn how to raise the money they need to fully fund their mission. I'm here to help you learn how to master the art and science of fundraising, and I've got a great tip for you in just a moment. But before we get to that, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that the next time we post a really great tip like this one, you're among the first to know. Okay, on to this week's tip.
So our fundraising tip of the week this week is about fundraisers. Now I'm going to be really transparent and tell you I've never been a huge fan of a fundraiser because to me that always means I am selling something or I'm doing something I don't really want to do instead of the work that I consider a little more honorable and a little more sustainable of donor-based fundraising. So again, in my mind, fundraiser it's a t-shirt sale, it's a calendar sale, it's I don't know, fill in the blank. It's something that we're doing where we're trying to get people to buy something or give so we can reach a really arbitrary specific goal for something. Now, the selling stuff, I'm not a giant fan. Sometimes you have to do that, and especially when your organization is really young, depending on your following, depending on your mission, selling t-shirts can work really well and bring in, $1,000, $2,000, something like that, which is nothing to sneeze at. So in the right circumstance, it can be really good, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So for me, it has to be the right fundraiser at the right time. When it just has to be right all the way around. You don't want to do something just because you saw somebody else do it, it worked for them, and you're thinking, well, let's try that. We need to do it. That becomes a money grab where you're just trying to grab cash however you can. Don't do it that way. That feels crappy to you. It feels crappy to your donors. Let's do fundraising in a way that feels good for you and it feels good for your donors. It feels good all the way around, because then you're gonna think like, wow, that worked. It was great. Let's do something like that again. So there's three things that I want to share with you about knowing when it's time to do a fundraiser and what fundraiser you should do. Okay, so you want to grab a pen, you can write these down. The first is this fundraiser that you're thinking about doing, it needs to fit as part of your plan. So one of the big mistakes that I see an awful lot of organizations make is they're very reactive. So they've got their heads down, they're delivering their programs or services, they're very busy, and then all of a sudden they look up and they go, oh my gosh, we need money, hurry, do something, like what can we do fast to raise money? I see a lot of organizations doing this. I've talked to 2 or 3 in the last few days who've been doing that. That's not a great way to go about this. What you need to do is be way more strategic. You need to have a plan, number one. So if you don't have a fundraising plan, that's problem number one that you need to address. When you have a plan, you can be more strategic and you can think about the fundraising activities that you want to do this week, this month, next month, the rest of the year. You can think about how much money that you plan to raise. And by the way, if you're not doing revenue projections as part of your fundraising plan, you should. It is not easy. Sometimes you can base it on how much you raised last year. Sometimes it's based on an educated guess, but you need to have some projections, because otherwise you live in this dark hole where you never know where money's coming from and you never know how much is going to arrive when it does. When you flip the switch on all of that and you go to a place of strategic fundraising, you can be purposeful about what you choose to do. You can choose the activities that are going to generate the kind of money that you need, and you relieve a lot of the pressure off your shoulders. So you're no longer living in that space of, I can't breathe because I don't know where the money's coming from. And that is not a good place to be. So number one, it needs to fit as part of your plan. Number two, if you didn't pick this up, I'm going to put a really fine point on it. It needs to be strategic. So you don't want to just do any old thing because you can to raise money. You want to choose a fundraiser because it's the right fundraiser for your organization. So being strategic is about a couple of things. Being strategic is choosing a fundraiser that is in alignment with your mission or your cause. It's in alignment with your mission or your cause. So here's a really, really rough example, but I think you'll get this. So if you run a farm animal sanctuary, you're saving horses, cows, pigs, chickens, and ducks, having a beef jerky sale, not a good idea. This is not in alignment with your mission, right? I worked one time for an organization that had a domestic violence shelter. It was a faith-based organization. And the ladies at the local strip club wanted to do a fundraiser for us. And we had to really wrestle with that. That was not in alignment with the values of the organization. Now they wanted to help the women in the domestic violence program. And we had to have some really serious conversation about, do we want to accept their donations or not? And how do we feel about that? And how do we feel about them publicizing that they're raising money for our organization? That's a very, it's a long conversation to have with the leaders of your organization. And ultimately, just for those of you who are going like, well, what did you decide? We ultimately did decide to accept those donations for a variety of reasons that I won't go into. When you're picking a fundraiser for your organization, you want to pick something that is in alignment, that's not going to cause anybody to go, why are they doing that? Doesn't make any sense. So keep that in mind. So it's strategic in the point of view that it fits in alignment. It's also going to fit in the timing of your plan and the timing of everything else that's going on. So if you want to do a fundraiser on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving in the US or the day before Thanksgiving in Canada, that's probably not a good day to do fundraisers if the majority of your people are distracted by that holiday. So this is not a strategically chosen day, unless you have a really good reason for doing it that day that I don't know about. If there's maybe an emergency, there's a crisis, or something else going on. Emergencies and crisis can be a really good time to do a fundraiser. So at the time that I'm talking about this, there's a hurricane bearing down in the Gulf Coast, and one of my clients is just south of Houston. So they're kind of braced for impact. Is this a time that they could be doing a fundraiser? Well, maybe not necessarily today because their whole audience is all braced, but if something terrible happens and that area is devastated by a hurricane, then absolutely they can come behind that and do some fundraising for hurricane relief. That'll make a lot of sense and people will give. So again, it's back to being strategic about the fundraiser that you want to do. Does it fit with your cause? Does it fit with the timing? And here's probably the most important thing that you want to think about when you're considering a fundraiser. Is this something that my audience is going to be interested in? More than likely, you're going to promote your fundraiser to your email list and to your social media following. Now, for some of you, if you have a facility that's on a busy road and you can put a sign outside, or if you have a place that people are coming through pretty often, then that's fine. You may be able to get some support from some other ways, but for most organizations, it's through your email list and your social media following. So you have to think about this audience of people and think about the fundraiser and its desirability. Is this something that my audience is going to want to participate in? Now, it's really easy when you're the one planning the fundraiser to say, well, of course they'll want to participate. This is great. It benefits our cause. Okay, time out. I want you to be objective about this and put yourself in the donor's shoes and really think about, how interesting is that fundraiser to me as a donor? And I'll tell you right now, it's some weird times out there. It's some weird times in the world. Time itself is very strange. Have you noticed that? Like every day feels like a week. It can seem like early summer. That was 6 years ago, right? Time is weird right now. And people are incredibly distracted. They have very, very little patience. A lot of people are emotionally exhausted right now from being quarantined at home and from all kinds of things that are happening. So you have to really be objective and put yourself in their shoes and think, is this something that my audience is interested in? And by the way, here's a great tip. If you are building relationships with your donors like you should be, you could reach out to a couple of them and say, hey, I'd love your advice on this. Psst, people love giving their advice. They love telling you what they think about stuff. So ask their advice. You ask them, you say, hey, I'm kicking around this idea for this fundraiser, and I'm just curious, what do you think about it? And do you think the rest of our supporters would get excited about this? It's a great question to ask. Donors love it when you ask for their opinions. So you can kind of test the waters that way and just see what their feedback is. If they're excited, then green light, go for it. If they seem a little, I don't know, then I'd go back to the drawing board and rethink that. Okay, so before you choose a fundraiser, you want to make sure it's part of your plan. You want to be very strategic in how you choose it. Make sure it's in alignment with your mission. It fits in the time of year. It fits with whatever's going on. and it's something that your audience is interested in. Now, if you want a little bit more help, we've got an article over on the blog at getfullyfunded.com/blog that goes into some detail about how to plan a fundraiser. And there is a checklist in that article that you can go through. That checklist will help you think about all the little details that you need to have thought about and have buttoned up before you launch your fundraiser. Don't go for the money grab. Go for the long-term success with this fundraiser, yes, but I want to set this up so that it supports me long-term as well. So by the way, you can get all kinds of other good articles over at getfullyfunded.com. But definitely go check that article out with the checklist on how to plan a fundraiser. I think you're going to like it. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye.